Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayapataka Swami
The following is a class given by His Holiness Jayapatākā Swami Maharaj on August 9th, 1980. The class begins with a reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, Text 14.
So here Lord Vishnu is advising Maharaj Prithu how to be a successful ruler of his citizens. It is understood that if one performs his duty as given to him by higher authorities in disciplic succession, that by performing one's service perfectly, one is able to achieve the highest perfection of life. A king's duty is not only to levy taxes, punish miscreants, but it is also his primary duty to see that the citizens are Krishna conscious, are God conscious. Without that, then the kingdom becomes simply a trouble for the king and for the citizens. It becomes a trouble for the citizens in this life, and it becomes a trouble for the king in this life and the next. Because in this life, there's all kinds of indiscipline, and in the next life he has to accept 1/6 of the sinful reactions of his praja, his citizens. The presidents of the United States, I don't know if this is any, but it always seems that they age so much immediately after being in office. I mean, if there was a before and after picture, I'm sure that anyone could see. Of course, I have not seen them in person, but from the photographs, it seems that they go through tremendous changes. The rulers of this world need to know Krishna conscious principles. They are being put on the frying pan. They are accepting 1/6 of all the sinful activities of this nation and of the nation they rule. They do not know what they're getting in for. And they do, because of sectarian state, so-called sectarian state where there's no, that non-sectarian, meaning to say, they don't encourage the praja, the citizens, in any kind of religious activity. Therefore, everything is in a very critical state. You might be interested to know how Rupa and Sanatan, when they were the prime ministers of the kingdom, of the empire, of the Hussain Shah, the Mohammedan emperor of the United Kingdoms of Bengal and Eastern India, that of course we know that how humble they are, and mainly in Chaitanya Charitamrita we understand their humility, describing themselves as so fallen, to be employed in the service of a Mohammedan. However, there was one devotee, Chaitanya Das, who went with his teacher when he was just a student. You see. And this Chaitanya Das, he described, Chaitanya Das is the father of Srinivas Acharya. There's two Srinivasas. One is Srivas Prabhu, who is in the Panchatattva, and the other is Srinivas Acharya, who is disciple of the of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, student of Jiva Goswami, who is a great preacher. So, this Chaitanya Das, he went with his teacher to see the Prime Minister. Why? Why would teachers go to see these Prime Ministers? Because you see, Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, when they were ministers, they were running the whole government. Actually, the king, he didn't have anything to do but declare war, whatever, just to have a good time. He didn't have too many problems. He could spend his time in the conquest or whatever he wanted to do, because the actual whole government was being run by Rupa and Sanatana. So what did they do? They built their own court a bit away from the king's court, just a few miles, in a place called Ramakeli. And there they reconstructed a Vrindavan situation. They dug a Radha Kunda, Shyama Kunda, kundas for the Sakhis, the other Sakhis, Madhumangala and all the 8 main Sakhis, they dug the kundas. And they had Radha Madana Mohana deities, which were regularly being worshipped. And every day, countless scholars were coming, Pandits, devotees, and they were always discussing the Bhagavatam, hearing the lessons of Bhagavatam, discussing Krishna Katha, and giving profuse charity to the Brahmanas for their Krṣṇa Conscious and scholarly work. So as a result, actually the whole culture, the whole Vedic culture was in that kingdom. Why was Navadip flourishing? It was because of the just rain cloud like charity of Rupa and Sanatana. This is the inner secret. Why? One of the reasons why the culture was kept at such a high tide, because of their charity. And and they were so humble. Although they were so powerful, generally people become very puffed up, proud. But they were so humble. Even when they were the prime ministers, they were so humble. They were very kind. They were very considerate. And they were very exacting in their judiciary skill. They took the advice of Brahmanas, but they were very penetrating in their own expertise for managing. Therefore, they could finish their business very quickly, and they could maintain the maximum time in Krishna Katha, Krishna worship. So to see this court of Rupa and Sanatana, when they were the ministers, this Chaitanya Das, for his whole life he couldn't forget that what tremendous qualities they had. This is the duty of a ruler, you see. Actually, of course, their destiny was not to remain as prime ministers, but their duty was to become, of course, the greatest preachers for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to discover all the hidden tirthas of Vrindavana, and to write Bhakti Shastra, scriptures upon devotional principles. So of course one time when Lord Chaitanya was going to Vrindavana, he went through that Ramkeli, and at that time there were literally hundreds of thousands of people gathering around Lord Chaitanya. He was dancing ecstatically and engaging everyone in Sankirtan, hearing about the proximity of Lord Chaitanya. Rupa and Sanatan were very eager to go to him. Of course the king at some point in time he asked, what about this Lord Chaitanya? He said, oh, he's just a sentimentalist, don't consider it very seriously. Because they didn't want him to become obsessed with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He might create some obstacle. So the two of them, they went to see Lord Chaitanya. And when they went to see Lord Chaitanya, they put a straw in their teeth. And from a great distance they fell down and they were offering stuti, prayers. When they got up, Lord Chaitanya started to approach them. And they said, please, please do not come near us. We are the most fallen. We are in the mlecha, meat-eating community. We are the most fallen people. We are to accepted service in this community. Do not come near us. We are so sinful. And although they were always reading the Bhagavatam, they were pure in every respect, they were daily worshipping Radha, Madana Mohana, just because they had accepted the task as politicians, as prime ministers for the Hussain Shah, they were taking such a humble position that Lord Chaitanya says, stop, stop, you are breaking my heart to hear this humility. You are great devotees. And of course, so he gave them instruction what they should do. And of course, very soon they made their escape and went off to Vrindavan, which of course, you know that story. So we can see here, of course, that is a duty of a ruler to first of all be Krishna conscious. Then everything goes well. The Hussain Shah might have wondered how things were going well. They're going well because, of course, because things were Krishna conscious. Of course, Lord Chaitanya was present. And Rupa and Sanatana were also protecting by their Krishna conscious ruling. Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he was present, things were so well run that one Brahmana, his son died before him, he could approach and say, what is this? What kind of king are you? My son has died before I have. This means your kingdom is completely in disorder. This is against the natural order of nature. How can a son die before his father? You must be removed for this injustice. You see, and we hear this, people have to laugh or scratch their head or complete bewilderment. Because we're in a world where people claim to be advanced, where yet everything is in such disorder in terms of natural harmony, harmony with nature, harmony with each other, that is inconceivable that someone could dare complain to anyone that his son is dead before he is. Here where, volcanoes blow their tops, where tidal waves, and hurricanes are every other month coming, where genocide and wars, hot, cold, lukewarm, are the continuous situation. Where suicides, what to speak of, the suicides in one part of, where was I? I was just in one city, in Chicago. Within a few block radius, there's one of the most wealthiest suburbs in America. They have the record they have achieved the highest record of suicides of teenagers in their block. 30 suicides within, not one block, but like 3-4 blocks, their neighborhood, within 1 or 2 years. 30 suicides. They're dropping like flies, so to speak. So this is the progress. Because people are told that if you are materially successful, that is your success. They're born successful, what are they going to do? Those people are born, with their car and with the money, with the bank balance and but they're completely frustrated because that's not the goal of life. But who's telling them? You go to the church to play bingo and see the marriage of 2 priests who are homosexuals. So what is the goal of life? Who can figure it out in the modern society? Therefore people are completely bewildered. So therefore we can see that Srila Prabhupada said that in previous time he would go and convince the king. And when the king was convinced, then he would make his whole kingdom. Just like in India, Maharaja Ashoka, before he was converted to Buddhism, Buddhism couldn't make any progress. When he was converted, he could make the whole India Buddhist. Later he was driven out. So, of course, after some time, and Buddhism had to stay in the other nations nearby as Bharat became smaller. So, but this is the situation. So today it's democracy for the people, or by the people, whatever, of the people. It's a question whether it's for the people, but anyway, it's supposed to be by the people. So who can the people blame if they vote, bogus people, to rule them? So therefore Srila Prabhupada said we have to educate the masses about what are the real values of life. You see, then they can demand, we want honest, God-conscious administrators, rulers in our government. Right now the people do not have any real standard. In such a big nation, big democracy, most powerful democracy in the world, United States of America, and the presidential election, they're fortunate if 50% of the people even bother to vote. I mean, people are apathetic. They know this one or that one, what's the difference? They're not interested. So basically, these systems are not successful because they're not inducing the people to become God conscious. Therefore they don't care anymore. So many people don't care. Caring comes, concern, responsibility, when we realize that I'm eternal, that how I act will affect me not only in this life, but in future lives. Sure, what is the world then? He can understand. So these things have not been taught. They don't realize their relationship with Krishna. So therefore we distribute books, we go preach them, we cultivate congregations to bring them to the platform of understanding. Actually, the devotees, their lives are completely different. Devotee is always absorbed in Krishna consciousness. You see. In fact, just like there's a prayer that says that the Gaudiyas, the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, their life and soul is Sri Sri Radha Madana Mohana, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, and Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. So, the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they've accepted as their life and soul these three deities. And these deities, of course, their worship was first expanded by the Goswamis in Vrindavana. The deity of Govindaji, you see, when Rupa and Sanatana went there was no deity that they could, that they had to worship. And Rupa was is it Rupa or Sanatana? I believe Sanatana is Radha Govinda, isn't it? Sanatana Goswami, he was feeling very much Rupa, Radha Govinda, right? Sanatana is Samanda. And Rupa Goswami was feeling very dissatisfied. Because there was Vrindavan, there was his service, he was chanting everything, but where was Govinda? What is Vrindavan without Krishna? So he was very eager to find Govinda. So one time he was absorbed in that kind of a separation from Lord Govinda. And suddenly one elderly Brahmana, Brajavasi, came up. I said, "Why are you looking so sad?" I said, "I want to find Govinda. What is Vrindavana without Govinda?" And he said, "Well, there's one place where a cow every day, most beautiful celestial looking cow comes and just spontaneously waters the ground with with milk from her milk bags and goes away every day." And I forget the name of that place, Gavi Javana or something. And you just meditate on that point and think what it means. And then that Brahmana disappeared. Not in the ordinary way, but poof. And then Rupa Goswami took that this was something very special. So naturally it didn't take him too much to think on that subject. Immediately he ran to that place. When he got there, no sooner did he get there, immediately he started to erupt in transcendental emotion, and he practically fell unconscious by the sight of that place. And he knew that Govinda is here. So he got all of the people from around that come, Govinda is beneath this earth here. So everyone came and they started to carefully excavate. Radha, Madana Mohan Radha. Of course, each deity is non-different because they're Krishna. But each deity is different in that they are Leela Bishesh. Every deity has got his own relationships and own pastimes with his devotees. You see, just like Krishna would expand and he would be the husband of Rukmini, husband of Satyabhama, husband of Kalindi, though his relationships with each queen was different. Similarly, we can understand from the Shastra that each deity has a separate reciprocation or relationship with his own devotees. Therefore, just like that young Brahmana who went with the old Brahmana to Vrindavana, and then the old Brahmana was so pleased with his service that he said in front of Lord Gopala that I'm going to give you my daughter to be your wife. And then they went back to Orissa, but then due to so many politics of the family members, they said, oh no, this is not possible. He wanted to give his daughter, but his wife, the elder son, they're all against it because he's a poor Brahmana. He said, you should give your daughter to a rich Brahmana in marriage, not this insignificant poor Brahmana. So in the face of all the pressure of his relatives, he could not. He prayed to Govinda, how to save me from this? And but he couldn't face up to it. He said, no. Where is the proof that I said this or something? Somehow he avoided the issue. And so then the Brahmana said, well, if I go, Gopal is our witness. If he gives witness, and they said, oh yes, because all the other relatives who were not so faithful, yes, if your Gopal comes here and give witness, then we'll give the daughter. So just see the affection of the Lord to his devotee. That the Brahman walked all the way back to Vrindavan and prayed to Gopal that you are the witness, you must please come and testify that what the old Brahmana said. Otherwise his religious principles are going to be ruined. He's a Brahman, he's lying. So how can I go there? I'm a deity. How can a deity talk? If you can talk, you can also walk. So you should come. So well, I'll come, but I'll walk behind you. But if you look, then I'll stop there. You cannot look behind how I am walking. You will just hear that I am following you by my ankle belts. So of course the young Brahmana began on his journey, and Gopal walked off with him all the way down to Orissa. You're probably knowing this. And we got there, of course, at the end, he could not bear to not look, so he turned around, and there immediately Gopal, outside the village, he stood in his murti form. And he testified on behalf of the young Brahmana that yes, this elderly Brahmana has said this. But of course, everyone can see that what a great devotee, that the Lord has walked by foot all the way from Vrindavana, just out of the affection of his devotee. And still today the deity, of course, of Sakhi Gopal is being worshipped. So, in a similar way, you see, Govinda didn't have any Radharani. Do you know how Govinda was united with Srimati Radharani? You see, in a similar way, a long time ago, Srimati Radharani had separated from Govinda, you see, somehow. And she was in Orissa being worshipped by one devotee by the name of Brihat Bhanu, who had a relationship with Radharani that she was his daughter. And he would worship her and take care of her just as his daughter. This was the relationship. Like Vrishabhanu also, of course, has that relationship with Srimati Radharani. There's nothing unusual about these things exist in the spiritual world. But after he disappeared, and gradually the Seva Puja, the deity worship, became deteriorated, and the local people, they no longer knew exactly the real nature of this deity. They knew the deity to be Lakshmi, and so they were worshipping Radharani as Lakshmi. So what happened was the Goswamis, they wanted to have Radharani's, but they were thinking how to do it. The eldest son of Maharaj Prataparudra, whose name is Jagannath Jana, he had a dream where the Lord told him to provide deity for Govinda, and said that the Radharani came to him, I believe, and told him that I'm in such and such a village and they know me as Lakshmi, but actually I'm Radharani, and I want you to send me back to Vrindavan to be with Lord Govinda. So of course Jagannath Jana was very excited. He ran down to that place and saw that the deity that the people were worshipping as Mahalakshmi was actually two-handed Radharani. And so he took the necessary steps in a big ceremony to transport Srimati Radharani to Lord Govinda. And in Vrindavana, of course, there again they were united. And who can express the transcendental joy of that reunion? And all the Brajvasis were, of course, very ecstatic. So, this Radha Govinda, as I was telling Swabhas yesterday, that they're very dear to the Gaudiyas. Actually, they gave the order to do book distribution to one of the great devotees of Lord Chaitanya. This Srinivasacharya, he actually was sent. Narottam Thakur has a prayer where he prays that Lord Chaitanya, you have so many energies who have come down to help you in your pastimes. Just like Rupa and Sanatan, they have been empowered by you to write transcendental literatures. And other devotees like Srinivasacharya, they have been empowered to distribute these literatures and to spread the knowledge of these literatures. So I pray to simply always be engaged in the servant of your servants, like that. There's one prayer Narottam Das has sung. Of course, Narottam himself is a great preacher. So after a tremendous ordeal where Srinivasacharya was actually very, very sad because he had never seen Lord Chaitanya in person, and he was always just very unfortunate in the sense that whenever he would go to meet some personality like Lord Chaitanya, just before he got there, he would disappear. You see. Of course, then he met Gadadhar. He went back to get something. And again, when he went to see Gadadhar, he had just disappeared. When he went to see Nitai and Advaita, they had just disappeared. Of course, he would always go into tremendous spiritual separation. At that point, sometimes he'd think that I should just leave my body. He'd be rolling in the ground, smashing his head, thinking that how useless his life was. But this was like his history. Finally, when he got to Vrindavana, he wanted to meet Rupa and Sanatan. He got there, and as he was just bathing in a river, some brahmanas came by and were lamenting the fact that now that Rupa and Sanatan had left the world, everything was empty. And he heard that and he just went mad. Just, you see. And he was lying unconscious in the temple of Radha. Govinda just thinking that he should take his life. What should he do? There's no one he could study the Bhagavatam from. All the associates of Lord Chaitanya had disappeared. You see, at that time, Lord Chaitanya, Rupa and Sanatan came in a dream, both of Jiva Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami told Jiva Goswami, you go to the temple, you'll find him, you can recognize this young Brahmana, Srinivas Acharya, and you make sure that he takes initiation from Gopal Bhatta Goswami and learns from you the science of the Bhagavat. You take care of him. His duty is going to be to preach my Sankirtan movement all over. And he told a similar dream to Gopal Bhatta that this person will come and you should accept him as a disciple. He has suffered spiritual agony, too much, so much. So, Jiva Goswami went to the temple and saw that while artis are going on, that Srinivas was off in one corner, just collapsed crying. And he could understand this is Srinivas. And he picked him up with his own hands and embraced him. And Srinivas, when he heard that who this was, he fell down and grabbed his lotus feet. And then Jiva Goswami took him to the to his ashram, to his little place where he stayed, and took care of him. And eventually he took initiation from Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So, making long story shorter, what happened was that you see, all the Goswamis, they had written so many literatures. Chaitanya Charitamrita was being written at Radha Kunda by Krishna Das Kaviraj. Different, literatures and tikas, commentaries were all being written there. But these had not been transported to Bengal, to Gormandal Bhumi. They were all practically, drying up, waiting to get the nectar from Vrindavan and to preach it. So, this was the situation in time. One day everyone was present in the Radha Govinda temple. When Govinda suddenly spoke, he said that, told to Jiva Goswami, that you give the power to Srinivas to take the devotional literatures to Bengal and distribute them to my devotees. That's all he said. And he dropped his garland. And Haribol, everyone just suddenly the deity started speaking. Everyone went wild. And immediately Pujari, tears in his eyes, he picked the garland up and he garlanded Srinivas. Acharya, and he started to pay his obeisances, overwhelmed and crying. And so then immediately everyone got prepared. All right, now we have to send the books. And they made the date and prepared the bullock cart and everything to carry all these literatures all the way to Bengal. You see. This was the situation. So actually Radha Govinda, we can see that they're very much behind book distribution. You see, actually they initiated this because they were the first books that were really written by our Gaudiya devotees, and he sent Srinivas to go and distribute them. That Narottam described that some are empowered to write, some are empowered to distribute. These are both confidential services to the Lord. To preach to other devotees, these are confidential services. So, of course, Srinivas Acharya, he was not alone. With him, his associates were like Narottam Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, so many other. Ramachandra Kaviraj was his disciple, actually. And of course, when they went to Bengal with these books, they went into a country of Bankura, which is in Bengal, and there the king, in order to make his treasury full, he had a side business which was called dacoity, or armed robbery. He had a special team of trained troops who were actually nothing else but robbers. And he had an astrologer who would study astrologically that who was coming on the road. So the astrologer studied that the most valuable treasure is coming, and it's being carried by simply some sadhus. They have a huge box, and it's filled with some valuable treasure which I cannot understand, but I can, from astrologically, it is the most valuable thing. So the king, he said, this is a very good news. So he sent out his robbers, and that night, of course, they're sleeping, our great previous acharyas, and the robbers come and say, here's some just sannyasis, some preachers, and the big box this is like taking, candy from a baby. They just came in, took the box and left. No one even knew what happened. They woke up in the morning. All the scriptures are gone. All the books are gone. Srinivas is, again, he just smashing his head, pounding. I mean, the others, they just went off different directions because it was too much. And began preaching with Srinivas. He said, I have to find these books. Practically, he almost left his body in the anxiety. So then he finally went to here and there. He finally got to this king's courtroom. And there he saw all the brahmanas are sitting trying to figure out what is the meaning of these books. And they're giving this interpretation and that. And he comes in and says, these people appear to be brahmanas, but they don't know what they're saying. So now a statement like that is a very big challenge. And so the king immediately said, so, you think that you can know what they're saying better than them? If you cannot, then it may cost you your life. To challenge all these exalted brahmanas in this way? So no, by the mercy of my spiritual master, I can try to explain to you what these mean. You see. And what had happened was the Chaitanya Charitamrita was on the bottom when they were carrying the books, but it came to the top of the box. Because it is the most exalted literature in our Sampradaya. Prabhupada has described it as the postgraduate study of devotional service. So then he began to preach from these literatures, and everyone was amazed. They couldn't stop listening. How he was explaining Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how was he explaining Radha Krishna, how he was explaining devotional service, everything. And so the king came off his throne and then he fell down at his feet and begged, you please accept me as your disciple. You must be the king's guru for this whole kingdom and guide us how we can advance in our spiritual life. You see. So then at that point, Srinivasacharya became the Raj Guru. And that whole kingdom, even today there are so many, we make many devotees from Bankura district. There's ancient temples of Lord Chaitanya there. That is where the wooden deities, beautiful wooden deities are all carved in Bankura district. Many of the best, beautiful deities I've seen are carved there. So, by the preaching, you see, to this ruler, converting him, the whole kingdom was immediately made Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sankirtan movement, Krṣṇa Conscious. And, of course, nowadays, who do you approach? Even if the democratic leader is convinced, he can't say anything to his constituents. Because they'll just knock him down, take him off the vote. You see. Therefore, we have to preach to the intelligent people, to the mass of people, and convince them